So this is Unit 4, Lecture 5. We've passed by memory, and now we're going to talk about emotions. We're going to talk about theories of emotions, and we're also going to talk about the physiology of emotion, what physically happens to us when we experience emotions is what's going to take us through this. So what is an emotion? Well, emotions are a response of the entire organism. It involves a physiological arousal. Our heart starts to pound, sweating, things like that. Expressive behavior, where we get excited and we quicken our actions, or feel sort of bored and we don't move as fast, whatever. And it's a conscious experience of, am I scared? Am I excited? Am I nervous? And again, a lot of these are really, really close to one another. Arousal spurs the emotion, but cognition directs what it is. We have positive emotions, we have negative emotions, and we've got those in between. And the level of arousal, where I'm feeling guilty versus feeling terrorized, where I have want versus passion. There's different levels of emotions that we see here. And our expressions of emotions are very similar to ones that are completely opposite. When you think about laughter versus being scared, it's a very similar thing. When somebody scares you because you didn't expect them to be there, and they're like, boom, you're like, that release, that the heart pounding, and we just got to release that. It's very similar to when we laugh. Because when we laugh, it's because somebody said something I wasn't expecting them to. And the same way I'm scared, they're jumping out. I wasn't expecting that laughter. You said something, it's like, oh, it's that same sort of physical reaction that we have. So laughter, fear, very similar. And a lot of times what happens is we pay attention to the physical reaction that we have. And sometimes our emotions can be, for lack of a better term, confused as to what's causing it. So a little bit here of reading if you want to take a look and pause on how emotions work there. And there's basically 4 phases of emotions. Cute little chart right here of the periodic table of human emotions. Of course, that's not real. But the 4 phases are, first, I've got to interpret what's happening. Then I have a subjective feeling about what's happening. Then I have a physiological response of this happening. And then I have the observable behavior, which is my emotion. Now, the order that this works in, and are some of them happening simultaneously, is where we get to a little bit of a debate on the different theories of emotion. And again, leave it to psychology to take a natural thing like this and have theories. Some nice little charts right here on emotional equations. These are actually kind of cute. Curiosity is wonder plus awe. Anxiety is uncertainty times how powerlessness you feel. Disappointment is my expectations minus the reality. Cute little stuff right there in the emotional wheel that we see with different emotions and different levels right there. Now, different theories of emotion. The James Lang theory, also known as James Lange theory, of emotions, basically says our experience of emotion is our awareness of our physiological responses to emotional stimuli, and then we interpret that physical reaction. We don't lash out because we're angry, or angry because we lash out, according to James. Okay, so what happens is I see a stimuli and my body reacts. Then when my body reacts, my brain reads the physical reaction and it experiences an emotion. For example, shark comes at me, heart starts to beat. Brain goes, heart starting to beat, must be scared. All right. Again, car comes at me in traffic, my heart starts to beat. So I come up with the emotion of fear. All right. So what I'm basically doing is my body's having this natural reaction to the stimuli, and then my brain is reading my body. That's according to James Lange. Now, is this correct? Not really. Because again, one of the problems with this is that my heart starts to pound for a lot of reasons. It's not just because I'm scared. I could be excited, getting on a roller coaster, my heart's going to pound a little bit more. Someone I'm in love with walks into the room, my heart's going to start to pound a little bit more. So again, the idea that I'm just only going to have a faster heartbeat because of fear doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not only going to sweat because I'm nervous. Sometimes I sweat because of ecstasy and I've worked out. The great feel of working out, that's going to cause sweat. So again, Cannon-Bard was built in sort of rebuttal to this because he argued that, again, a racing heart could be many different things, so it of itself cannot cause emotions. So what Cannon-Bard basically says is that we've got the stimulus and then simultaneously all this is happening. We've got the physical reaction, we've got the cognitive arousal of, oh, it's a shark and I'm afraid of sharks, therefore I have to fear. So again, these are happening simultaneously. All right, I'm afraid of the shark. I know I should fear a shark. That, and my heart also happens to be pounding faster, therefore I should have fear. All right, that's Cannon-Bard. So there's a cognitive reaction based on experience, based on what I've learned, based on the way I should be acting is how I'm going to react to this. And again, both theories have weaknesses as well. And this is where Schachter comes in with his two-factor theory. And he basically said that in order to experience emotion, I have to be physically aroused and cognitively label that arousal. And then once those two are done, then I can have the emotion. So again, we come back here to Cannon-Bard where all this is happening at the same time. Schachter basically says, I have the physical reaction and the cognitive label. Then once I have those two, then I can have it. They're not all three happening at the same time. These two lead to that. It's not that they're all happening outside of one another. Emotion has a spillover effect. As well with the two-factor theory, the way that our emotions are can impact sort of other news. If I go for a run and I got good news, I'm going to be even more excited about the good news. You go for a run, your heart's beating a lot, you got that adrenaline going, you're feeling good. You go to the mailbox and you see you just got accepted to the University of Texas, and you're like even more excited than you normally would be because your heart's already pounding and you've already got the excitement from the good run. Yet if I take someone and they're taking a nap and they're sleeping and I go, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. You got accepted to UT, huh? What? Oh, yeah, great. And because you don't have that spillover that's going there. So our mood can have a huge impact on our levels of stress and hence our emotion. Good mood, we're more tolerant. Bad mood, we're more likely to snap back, which leads to more bad things. Then the good mood leads to more good things. Schachter's two-factor theory said that emotions could be contagious, and we saw this before when we talked about mirror neurons. As a matter of fact, we talked about this study when I was explaining to you what a confederate was a few lectures back. And basically what they did was they took a study of a bunch of different groups and they gave them a shot. One group was told, I just gave you a vitamin. The other group was told that I just gave you a little bit of like something to help your fluids, to hydration or whatever. And then one group was given nothing. So when they saw the Confederate act strange, these guys are like, oh, well, I got the B12 shot, I got the adrenaline, so that's why I'm feeling excited. This group goes, hey, I feel strange, or I feel sort of happy like the fella, because even though they got the shot of adrenaline, they thought they just got hydration. So they think that their excitement is based on them. And then these guys right here who got nothing also are going to experience this mood. So this study was done where students had test anxiety and were given a fake double espresso coffee before they took the test. And this is really interesting. So if I have to test anxiety, I give them a fake double espresso. They don't blame their anxiety on the test anymore. They blamed it on the caffeine. And as a result, they did better on the test because they're like, I'm not nervous and shaky because of the test. I'm nervous and shaky because of the caffeine, even though the caffeine wasn't in the double espresso. The double espresso was decaffeinated. But now I could take that emotion and I could blame it on something else and therefore do better on the test. It's really weird. So this mistaken attribution where sometimes we're feeling a way and we don't know why we're feeling a certain way. All three theories leave open the possibility of this misattribution. A great study to show this is a study called the Shaky Bridge Study, where heterosexual men were asked to look at a picture on a bridge and determine if this picture was in fact sexual, and later were asked if they were attracted by the female interviewer who also happened to give their number to her, to them, okay? those that took this and they were on a narrow, scary, shaky bridge, they were more likely to view the picture as not only being sexual, but they were also more likely to express attraction to the interviewer, and they were also more likely to make the call to the interviewer as well. Whereas people who were interviewed on a very, very sturdy bridge, they were less likely to see the picture as sexual. They were less likely to be attracted to the interviewer, even though it was the same interviewer. And they were less likely to call her, even though she gave them their number as well. And the reason why is because the people who were on a shaky bridge, their hearts were beating faster because they were scared. But they misattributed the heart beating faster because of that fear to the heart beating faster because I'm attracted to this person. Okay, so they were more likely to see the photo of the stranger attractive if they just ridden a roller coaster, and this is also why a lot of times sort of a con here. This is why a lot of times guys like to take girls on dates where the girls are going to be scared, because not only you take them to a haunted house, you take them to a scary movie. Not only are you there to protect them, but their heart is beating faster because they're scared out of their minds by this thing, but they misattribute that fear to being attracted to this person. And this is, again, why sometimes we like to date the bad boy. We like to date the bad girl because it's exciting and it's dangerous. And we take this danger for attraction, So you take the date to the scary movie. You take the date to the haunted house. You take the date to the comedy club. She's there laughing at the comedian, having a great time, thinking you're funny. When in reality, you're not. And again, this may also explain why relationships seem to cool off when the couple feels safe and secure with one another. Safe and secure isn't dangerous. And so a lot of people get bored in their relationship instead of looking at safe and secure as it's exciting to feel safe. It's exciting to be okay. You're tired of being on that shaky bridge all the time. Now, another thing that can affect our emotion is facial feedback. And we talked about this a little bit earlier when we talked about the history of psychology. And we were talking about the functionalism. This is the belief that we read our own facial expression. If I smile, I'm more likely to be happier. If I put on a frown, I'm more likely to be upset. So our face may have a reaction prior to this cognition. And that's why when we see other people smile, our mirror neurons want to smile as well. And if we can experience the emotion that others are displaying, can we be impacted by our own facial expressions? And the answer is yes. Studies have shown this to be true, where they had a group of people, you see the girl there with the pen right below me here, and they had a group of people watch a movie with a pen in their mouth like this. So again, they're pouty. And I think I mentioned this before. And the other group, the pen started to lay back, pushing around to smile, kind of like Jack Nicholson and the Joker there. So one pouty, the other forced to smile. And then one group just watched the movie. And those that were forced to smile actually felt happier. We feel happier when we smile. We feel worse when we don't. And as a result, it impacts our mood. Now, interesting thing here, and I might have mentioned this before, women who get Botox surgery, who can't, move their facial muscles as much, sometimes have trouble reading other people's expressions. So this has worked better with those because they were forced to smile, they felt better, but it was limited because they were also asked to smile. All right. So again, what you want to do, people that are watching a cartoon holding the pen in the teeth found it more amusing than those holding it with their lips. Holding the pen had a greater impact because the subject was not aware of why they were doing it to cause a smile or a frown. Less impact if there was a camera there. If there was a camera there, well, I'm a little bit more self-aware because now I feel like I'm being watched. Okay. Body language can be impacted as well. If you have a dominant posture, if you sit up, you feel more comfortable. You feel more confident when you sit up as opposed to going like this. Pills that are muscle relaxers, that make our muscles just sort of go, can also relieve stress and anxiety because we're not as tense. We're not feeling as tense. So we read our own body And our own body will sometimes tell us this emotion, and that's that two-factor theory going on there. Color can have a huge impact on emotion as well. Many advertisers, politicians, keenly aware of the colors. You know, you see Donald Trump here, who traditionally wore red ties. You always see him with a red tie. Here in a debate with Hillary Clinton, wore a blue tie so he would seem not as aggressive as he was in the previous debate. Whereas Secretary Clinton there wearing all red because she wants to seem to be in charge. Red, bold, in control. When a president is giving a speech and he wants to take control, it's red. When he wants to give a symbol of being peaceful, like Obama here with a transition, blue. Purple, royalty, wise, creative, multiple colors, diversity. A lot of job consultants will coach you to be very cognizant of the tie that you wear, of the clothes that you wear, because what you wear puts off a lot of who you are, because people are going to read that right away. Advertisers will go with that. You know, the main colors of certain products, you know, Lowe's is going to be in blue because they need to be trusted. You know, peaceful, health, outdoors, green, creative in purple, excitement. I'm excited to go to Target, play with my Legos. What's on CNN and Coca-Cola, that's in red. Friendly is orange, you know. Optimism is yellow. Hey, they're going to deliver. It's going to be good. So all of these things, color has a lot to do with it. See right here, the colors you wear and what does that say about you, blah, 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 there. Now, again, when it comes to the physiology of emotion, this goes back to what we were talking about with your nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Emotion leads to changes in the way that our body functions. When I think I got to go into that fight or flight because I'm scared and I can't do what my body should be doing, that's when my sympathetic nervous system starts to spend that energy. But when I feel at peace because I get the puppy and I'm all happy, and then that's where the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, because I can preserve that energy. All right. Emotions tend to be higher after being awake for a couple of hours, and they rapidly decline the more that we're awake. When we get tired, we get lethargic and whatnot. The levels of emotions can have both a positive and a negative impact on us. We'll talk about this more when we get to motivation, but coaches want you to play with emotion, yet at the same time keep under control. When we perform a difficult task, we do better when our arousal level is low. When we perform a simple task, we do better when our arousal level is high. We talked about this again before when we talked about motivation. And this is what's known as the Yerkes-Dobson's theory of motivation. When the optimal arousal level for performance is not too high and it's not too low. I don't want to be too excited, but I also don't want to be too, you know, lethargic either. So again, this will tie into when we get to motivation and when we get to social psychology down the road. When we excel at a task, we perform better in front of others. When we have not mastered a task, we perform worse. Some people hate speaking in public. Some people thrive to be the center of attention. So again, the emotion affects us differently there. And just as emotions are sometimes difficult to control and can be unpredictable, so can our physiological reactions. Lying, for example. A lot of us think when somebody's lying, they don't look us in the eye and they start to sweat and they do all these things. Those can be measures of lying, but what you have to see is what's the person's normal behavior. If you're normally a nervous person, there's some people that can look you cold-blooded in the eye and lie because they find nothing wrong with lying. So they're not going to have the physiological reaction. They're not going to sweat. They're not going to have a higher heartbeat because they don't care that they're lying to you. So again, to have a lie detector test, it is very possible that a guilty person can beat a polygraph by controlling their emotions that are normally impacted by lying. And 25% of the time, this happens. You see people that are judged innocent by the polygraph versus people that are judged guilty. You know, there's a lot of times that people that are guilty can beat it. And at the same time, it's also possible that an innocent person could show physiological signs of lying because they're nervous. Someone just arrested me because they think I killed my wife, but I didn't kill my wife. And why am I being arrested? And suddenly I'm Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, and I'm going to be nervous. Well, now it's going to seem like I'm lying. Why is your voice going so high? You know, because I think I'm going to be on trial for murder here. So that's a big deal there. So lie detector is not admissible in court for that reason. Can be used to investigate, but can't be used as evidence. So detecting emotion in others, nonverbal communication, which we'll talk more about when we get to language and thinking. This is everything outside of the words that we use to communicate. 93% of our communication is nonverbal. Only 7% of our communication are the words that we use, the actual words that I say. 38% of it's vocal, the volume, the pitch, the tone, the rhythm. There's a difference between me saying, hey, you have a test tomorrow versus, hey, you have a test tomorrow. Those are two different messages that are impacted by the tone of my voice, the excitement of my voice, whatever. And then 55% of it's body. How are people looking at me? The gestures, the hands, the eye contact, all these things interpret that message. And that's where we get really confused on things like text messages, because text messages don't have nonverbal communication. It's just the words. Think of how many times you have texted somebody and you've totally miscommunicated with them. You know, if my wife texts me the word whatever, what does that mean? You know, if I say, should I do this? Whatever. Does that mean, yeah, whatever. It's up to you. Do what you want to do. Or does it mean whatever, which means I better buy flowers on my way home too? I don't know. I really don't know. So it's very, 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 very important that we have this nonverbal cues. And that's why people will sometimes type in all caps. That's why sometimes people will put in emojis. It's why sometimes people can prefer to communicate always with FaceTime, so you can get those nonverbal cues. Nonverbal communication is read 10 times more accurately by women, but both sides give them a smile. And again, we're really weird about these rules. They're unwritten rules. A smile that's less than 0.25 seconds, like, that's looked at as a smirk. We don't like that. But at the same time, if you smile for over a second, you go, yeah, that's looked at as fake. That's too long. The money smile is in between there, the 0.75 second smile. That's a true smile. A sigh. What's a sigh? If someone just goes, is that relief? Oh, thank goodness that's over. Or there's that, I'm tired of you. You know, is that boredom? You know, so this can all be misread. Eyes are the key to people reading and measuring other people's emotions. Switching the eyes of two pictures will totally impact the way that people perceive what's going on with the emotion of that person. So we have macro expressions, we have micro expressions. A macro expression can be picked up on a conscious level. We see it, we notice it. It's Jim in the office, you know, who gets the laugh or whatever, by you look over at him, you know exactly what's on his mind based on his expression. All right. And this is why a lot of times when you see people that are professional gamblers, what they will do is they'll wear things to cover their eyes, to cover their face, whatever, so that they won't give away what cards they have. So a lot of times people try to fool their macro expressions to try to fake certain messages to people, which we see in gambling all the time. But the other type of messages that are done are called micro expressions, and micro expressions are picked up on a subconscious level. Micro expressions, we're not aware that we're giving them, and we're not too aware that we're picking them up, and they're almost impossible to fake. You know, and one of the micro expressions is, again, go back to a smile. What is a real smile? I get very, very frustrated when someone's taking a picture and they go, smile, and I'm like, say something funny, entertain me. You know, I can't just, because it's fake. And someone just goes, and you see people all the time. Let's take a selfie. You want to take a selfie? We're going to take a selfie together. Ready? Here we go. Get ready for the selfie. Here we go. Okay, how was that? And you're like professional models, but those selfies are fake smiles. And you can tell the money part of the smile is right here. If somebody's truly laughing, they're truly happy, truly smiling, you will see wrinkles in their eyes, versus the fake smile doesn't force this to come up as much. That's an example of a micro expression. So again, a little bit there on macro, micro, subtle expressions that you have there. Now, when it comes to emotion, women are more emotional than men. Not true. Women and men are just as emotional as one another, but women are better at expressing their emotions, and they're better at reading emotions. Okay, so again, women are going to express emotions at greater rates. They're going to read emotions at greater rate. And this is also why women tend to be more empathetic. And this goes back to caveman days. It was kind of their job. Men have been conditioned since a very young age not to express emotion. Think of how old you were, gentlemen, when your father told you for the first time, shut up, stop crying, be a man. You know, I've had this story of kids, and I've had boys tell me, I was 5 years old, I was playing basketball, my little basket, and it broke, and I started to cry. My dad's like, be a man. Dude's 5. You should be able to cry a little bit. And I know women sit there and say, I think it's okay for men to cry. I think a man should be able to cry. There's nothing wrong with men crying. You say that. You say that. But if you're at a haunted house with a guy and he's suddenly and runs away, you're going to be a little bit concerned about that relationship. You're sitting and you're watching Bambi with a guy and you're on a first date, and Bambi's mom dies and he starts to do that. You're like, I don't know. So you say it's okay, but this is why guys are hiding emotions. This is why guys, when something emotional happens in a movie, there's a lot of there's a lot of that going on. I was like, oh, it's popcorn, it's salty, whatever. Women have been encouraged to express emotion, both verbally and non-verbally, and they can express it with one another. Guys, when they express emotion with other guys, it's like they got to drop the eyes. It's like, I love you, man. It can't be, hey, I love you, man. It's got to be, I love you, man. And then you got to punch them or something. So there's a different level of expression. One emotion that men are more likely to express is, well, let me see if you can tell. Look at these two faces. Look at these two faces right here. If you had to take a guess of those two faces, which face would you assume is a man? Most of you guys would pick the face on the right. You'd pick the face on the right. Why? Because it expresses anger. Anger is more closely associated with men. And anger is an expression we are more likely to express because anger shows aggression, control, dominance, whereas friendliness shows weakness. Both genders tend to overestimate the duration of bad moods and they underestimate their capacity to bounce back from trauma. Both of them do. Okay, so again, men and women just as emotional as one another. Women better at expressing, and a lot of times you got to shake a mood. You got to shake a bad mood, get out of it. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but sometimes you got to choose to be in a better mood. You got to shake the mood and get into the next one. Now, facial expressions. This is also interesting because the world over, there's about 6 universal facial expressions: happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, and disgust. And no matter where you are in the world, they're expressed the same: happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, disgust. So this is innate within us. No matter which culture you go to, all cultures express happiness as that, surprise as this, fear as that. More of a furrow of the brow. I've got a furrow of the brow as opposed to the open brow. Sadness is almost the brows coming in and I'm sad. Anger, I'm furrowing. Disgust, nose coming up. All cultures express it the same. This is an innate language that we have. This is the reason why I can watch Telemundo soap operas and kind of get what's going on with all the nonverbal communications and facial expressions. In his book, The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals in 1872, Darwin argued that all people express certain basic feelings in the same way. What babies do is they mimic the faces in the same way that they mimic sounds. And we'll talk about them mimicking sounds with language down the road, but they mimic faces. And you look at a baby, you just make faces and they make faces right back at you. And this allows us to follow plots on TV shows, as I just mentioned. Olympic athletes that experience success and failure on the international stage are going to show similar emotions. Studies have implied that certain basic facial expressions are innate. They're part of our biological inheritance, and it can impact our behavior. It's the reason you can look at dogs and tell when there's a happy dog and there's a sad dog. It's innate. It's within them. Disgust is, by the way, a very, very important expression for us to have, because this goes back to the time where we needed to avoid diseases, the clenching of the lips, the pulling away. I don't want that bad thing in my body. The first trimester, women find heightened levels of disgust, and the reason for that is to protect their unborn. But this has been used to shape our amygdala in our in-groups and out-groups. Disgust is often triggered by things at odds with our sense of moral purity. We don't like what they're doing. I don't like who they're voting for. I don't like how they're I am disgusted by them. It's not that we just don't like the who someone else voted for. We're disgusted by who they voted for. People are more sensitive to disgust, tend to be more judgmental of others, and feel more threatened when disgust is part of you. One 2011 study found that people who were exposed to something disgusting tended to make harsher moral judgment for things like stealing library books, shoplifting, accepting bribes. So sometimes to make people more agreeable, put an air freshener in the room. Their level of disgust will go down. Make it a clean place. Because when people are open to disgust, that disgust seeps into their disgust of other things. In the same way that when people are happy and put in a happy environment, they're going to express more happiness. The number one advice I always give to new teachers, the number one piece of advice, and they go, okay, well, how do you teach? Be in a good mood. Be in a good mood. Because if I'm in a good mood, then my students are going to be in a good mood. But if I'm a teacher who goes, all right, this sucks, we got to go over it anyways, let's just do it, and you guys are probably not going to get in, you're going to fail the test anyways. If that's my attitude, well, your attitude's going to be the same. We're going to mirror one another. I am sitting for every lecture that you've learned. I'm now on lecture number, which lecture is this? Let me look it up real quick. This is, looking at my other computer that has it routed here. So 26, 27, this is the 27th lecture that I have done in this office during the summer. And I have done everything that I possibly can to give, as I'm doing this alone in my room, a little puppy right over here though. As I'm doing this alone, I'm trying to put a good mood. I'm trying to be in a good mood while I do this, because if I sit here and go, all right, now this is about the expression of emotions in mans and animals, and I don't even know why I called it man. It's kind of dumb, whatever. If I do that, then why would you want to learn it? So again, the facial expression doesn't just impact us, it impacts how we react to other people. And again, not all expressions are universal. Facial expressions are very universal, but body language, proximity, hand gestures, all these other things, not so much, can be confused across cultures, which we'll talk more about when we get to language. You take a look at the swastika here. Many cultures, the swastika is a peace symbol, not so much with the Nazis. Back in the day, this is how kids used to do the pledge. Back in the 1920s, in America, kids are doing the pledge like that. There's the flag, I pledge allegiance to it. Flag, I'm pledging allegiance. Don't do it anymore, because now Hitler ruined it. Ruined everything. Can't have a little short mustache anymore. Hitler ruined it. Can't name my kid Adolf. Can't name my dog Adolf. People look at me weird. Lucky girl. All right. She's a girl. I wouldn't name her Adolf anyways. Cultural and emotional expression depends a lot on what's around you. Individualistic cultures like American cultures are more likely to express emotion, more likely to smile, more likely to say, these are my cards on the table, because this is who I am as an individual. I want to show you my status. I want to show you who I am. That's an individualistic culture. Collectivist culture, on the other side, are less likely to express their emotions, making sure that their emotion goes along with the display rules that are allowed. Asia, Latin America, India. Now, again, I'd make an argument about Latin America not expressing themselves. Latin America is a very, very expressive way, but you still tend to do it within the rules of the group, ways it's not going to be a affront to my family, etc. European and American leaders are 6 times more likely to be smiling in official photographs than their Asian counterparts would in that. There's also what's called behavioral feedback theory. As we mentioned before with facial feedback theory, I feel happy because my face is smiling. Like I mentioned before, the tendency of our behavior is to influence our own but others' thoughts and feelings and actions as well. If I keep my eyes downcast and I walk in short shuffling steps, I'm going to feel more sad. If I walk with my head up, long strides, shoulders back, I'm going to feel more confident. When we mimic the actions of others, we tend to gain similar emotions, empathy to those people. When our team scores a touchdown, they get excited. We put our arms up too. That's a touchdown. Others start to laugh. We're more likely to laugh. And what's really interesting about this is now artificial intelligence is reading your social media history, and it's going to target your perceived moods. It sees that you've been posting that you're in a good mood about things. They're going to respond and market you in a certain way, including politically with that. But if I get on there and I just start complaining about all things in life and how angry I am, they're going to send you stuff to make you more angry about the other side. And to sort of play on that. So watch out what you're reading and what you're putting, and just realize that it's this constant loop that's going on. Last thing we need to talk about here with emotion is the idea of look good, feel good, do good. The way a person dresses themselves has a large impact on your self-confidence. When I look good, when I'm dressed well, I feel a little bit better. When I dress like a slug, I feel a little bit worse. There's something about taking care of yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to be the most beautiful person in the world, but are you presenting the best person that you could be? That's going to make you feel better. We feel better in a tuxedo. We feel better in the nice dress before prom. It gives us a sense of confidence. And we see this in athletics all the time. Alternate jerseys, when these, especially young kids choosing a college, Oregon, is always towards the top in football programs, even though, they don't have the greatest recruiting classes. The players, once they get there, they're never wearing the same helmet twice. They're never wearing the same uniform twice because, Philip Nike, who, founded Nike, he's in charge of Oregon. And then they look good, they feel good, they do good, and this is why, even though they don't have the top ranked recruiting classes, they're still one of the top teams in football. And what's really interesting about this to the extreme is the University of Iowa. The University of Iowa, this is their visiting locker room. Their visiting locker room, they have painted in pink. And the idea is by painting the locker room in pink, it's going to make the team a little bit softer coming out of the locker room, and it'll help their home record. Does it work? Does it not work? I don't know. But it's an interesting little thing that they do. The better mood that we are in, the more likely we are to be charitable and sympathetic towards others. The worse mood we are in, the less patience we have with other people. Look good, feel good, do good. And it doesn't mean you have to be the best looking person in the world. It's just, are you looking the best that you can? And then you're going to feel better. But when we feel bad, we don't even give a crap about what we look like. That's a tragedy too. Okay, so that kind of wraps us up with emotion. Oops. Oh man, awkward. There we go.